Hello, 5th grade. Today we will be reading chapters 33 through 35 of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. So when we left off, Minli encountered the green dragon again, except she met two young children who were twins, Afu and Dafu, and while Dafu was hiding, Afu managed to trick the dragon into thinking he was encountering a beast, his son, who was disgracing him and disrespecting him. And they tricked him into jumping into a well. And then she met their grandfather, Agong, and Minli told Agong that her friend had been injured by the tiger, and Agong seems to have some sort of medicine to help Dragon. However, he said that they need to get to him quickly, otherwise Dragon will die. So chapter 33. He's in here, Minli called to Afu, Dafu, and their grandfather, pointing to the cave opening. Even before reaching the entrance, Agong was already holding the medicine bottle in his hand. As they rushed inside, Minli was relieved to hear Dragon's rasping breath. He was still alive, but as the children and their grandfather saw him lying in the dim light, they stopped, shocked still. Your friend, the boy said in awe. Is a dragon? The old man recovered from his surprise. Matters not, he said to them. Quickly, where is his wound? Minli carefully unwound her blanket from Dragon's arm and winced. The gashes seemed to have burned into him like evil coals. The blackness had spread, and his arm looked like a burnt tree. Swiftly, the man pushed Minli aside and began to pour the liquid from the medicine jar over Dragon's black arm. The tonic was a clear yellow-green with a gentle aroma of fresh flowers and grass, reminding Minli of a spring morning. As it washed over Dragon's diseased arm, his tightly closed eyes relaxed and the grimace on his face smoothed, as if a deep pain was relieved. The medicine melted the dark poison. The blackness seemed to be rinsing away, and Dragon's breathing became easier and even. Minli sighed. She hadn't realized until then that she had been holding her breath. She knew, even before the man smiled, that Dragon was going to be okay. Daafu, the old man said, and Minli realized that he was calling both his grandchildren with a single name. Go home and tell the family what has happened and where I am, or they will worry. I need to stay with the dragon. Tell Amma and all the women to make more medicine, and when it is ready to bring it to me. This dragon will need to drink it when he awakens. Thank you, Minli said softly. The man turned and looked at her wind-burned face, tangled hair, and eyes shadowed with weariness. He's going to be fine, the grandfather said to her kindly, and then turned back to the children. Daafu, bring this girl home and tell Amma to take care of her. She has not slept in a warm bed for a long time. I want to stay with Dragon, Minli protested. I want to help him. I will stay with him, the old man said to her. Don't worry, he will be fine. You have already helped him. Minli opened her mouth to argue, but a yawn formed instead. She realized the man was right and nodded her head. The boy took one of Minli's hands and the girl took the other, and they led her out of the cave. Chapter 34. Which one of you is Afu and which one is Dafu? Minli asked the twins. My name's Minli. The children laughed. Their giggles were like bells playing in unison. I'm Afu, the girl said. He's Dafu, but you can just call us Daafu because we are always together. Everyone does. Minli smiled. The exhaustion from the long night of worry had made her feel heavy and clumsy, but the children's happiness seemed to carry her. Their every word seemed to be mixed with merriness. Their laughter pushed her towards the cheerful yellow patch in the distance. And as they approached the spot, Minli realized that the yellow was flowers. In front of them was a land full of blooming trees. The trees were heavy with bright blossoms, and as the wind blew through the branches, golden flowers showered down like rain. As they reached the trees and breathed in the spicy scent of the flowers, Minli gasped. It's beautiful, she said. The children laughed again, and the brilliant red of their clothes and the golden yellow flowers of the trees seemed to make Minli's eyes dazzle with color. But their brilliance was a contrast to the stone rooftops of a village below. The homes looked as though they had been hewed from the cold, harsh rock of the mountain, and Minli saw that the flowering trees were the only things that grew easily from the unforgiving, rough soil. The boy saw Minli's gaze. That's our home, he told her. The village of the moon rain. Village of the moon rain, Minley asked. That's a strange name. Why isn't your village named after the flowering trees? It is, Dafu said. The story of the village of the moon rain. Over 100 years ago, when our ancestors were first brought here, the land of the village was barren and gray. Everything was dull and colorless, the wind cold and bitter. Still, our ancestors worked hard. They built houses out of mountain stone, sewed warm, wadded cotton jackets, and planted seeds in the hard dirt. But despite their efforts, the land refused to bear a single plant or flower. However, even though it looked hopeless, our ancestors continued to work. Then one night, when the moon was big and round, the air filled with a strange fluttering sound. Our ancestors thought that a great storm was coming and rushed inside. And a great storm was coming. With a crash, raindrops seemed to fall from the sky. But what strange rain it was! Round and smooth, in the glowing light, the raindrops looked like silver pearls, and when they touched the ground, they disappeared. It's raining pearls, our ancestors said to each other. Jewels from the moon. And they rushed out with baskets and bags, catching what they could from the strange storm. Magically, when the raindrops were caught, they didn't disappear, and soon their baskets and bags were full. But in the morning, our ancestors saw that the drops were not pearls or jewels. In the sunlight, they saw that they were really seeds, but no one knew what kind of seeds they were. Curious, they planted them in the hard earth, and when the moon rose again that night, the strange rain fell again as well. This time, our ancestors were not fooled and just watched the drops disappear into the ground. But in the morning, the planted seeds were sprouting as if watered by a magic brew. So night after night, the seed rain fell from the sky, and as daylight broke over the land, the seedlings grew higher. Soon they grew into beautiful silver trees with golden flowers. They were so beautiful, our ancestors planted more and more seeds, and soon the whole village was blooming with hundreds and hundreds of flowering trees. And since then, our home has been called the village of the moon rain. We plant new seeds every day, and every night the moon rain falls, and every morning a new seedling sprouts. Maybe in another 100 years, all this stony land will be covered with trees, and the mountain will be as golden as the moon. In 5th grade on page 186, you can see their ancestors collecting the moon rain. So these seeds rain from the sky every night, Minley asked. Well, every night there is a moon, the girl said. That is why we call it moon rain. And you don't know why? Minley asked. Even though she was tired, she could not help being curious. Both children shook their heads, and before Minley could ask more questions, the boy pointed. Minley followed his head and saw crimson gate doors painted with a cheerful greeting. We're here, he cried. Come on, we're home. Chapter 35. After the great storm, Ma and Ba worried that vast damage had been done to the village, and when the sun shone in the morning, the village looked as if it were in ruins. Large tree branches had fallen, and a clutter of leaves and roof tiles and dust and dirt littered the ground. Yet, when the villagers began to clean, they saw the storm had not harmed them as much as they had feared. At least no homes were destroyed, the villagers said to each other, and we know everyone is safe. Well, everyone except for Minley, they added silently. Ma and Ba said nothing when their neighbors paused awkwardly. They helped pick up the broken branches, swept broken bits of pottery and tiles from the street, and nailed shutters. At night, they quietly sat together at the table with the goldfish. Though Ma had heard nothing, Ba remembered the fish's words about the fear and the wind. It filled him with worry, and he waited for the fish to speak again. However, it remained oddly silent. Finally, when Ma was busy helping a neighbor, Ba tried to question the fish. During the storm, you said there was fear in the wind, Ba said to the fish. Whose fear was it? Was it Minley's? Was she afraid of something? The fish stared at Ba with its round eyes and made no sound. Please tell me, Ba said, his hands around the bowl. The fish swam noiselessly in the water. Ba was puzzled. Had the fish stopped speaking? Or was he now unable to understand? Or perhaps the fish had never spoken and it had all been his imagination. Ba placed his ear close to the water. Was that faint bubbling a whisper? He strained closer, his ear beginning to dip into the water. What are you doing? Ma asked as she came into the room. Ba jerked his head up, his ear dripping with water. Nothing, he said sheepishly. Were you cleaning your ear in the fishbowl? Ma said, slightly appalled. Not exactly, Ba said awkwardly. A cross look streaked across Ma's face, but as she looked at Ba, rubbing his ear shamefacedly, she did something she hadn't done in years. She laughed. You look so silly. If Minley were here now, Ma said, she would laugh at you. Yes, she would, Ba said, and he too began to laugh. She would laugh until she cried. Their laughter intertwined, but when they looked at each other, they could see the tears forming were not from joy. So 5th grade, has Ma been changing throughout the book? When we first met her, she was very kind of angry all the time, wasn't she? She was angry at the fact that they didn't have much, that they worked so hard for very little money and food. And now, ever since Minley went on her quest, she seems to be softening, doesn't she? In a way, towards Ba. And now she laughed, which she hasn't done in years. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? And why do you think that is? Well, we'll see if Ma's transition continues throughout the book. And nice job today.